today we are talking about a theory we have about the ever after. And
We've done it.
We have cracked it this time.
We cracked it.
I think we got it.
Wide open.
So,
Busted this case.
a little backstory, okay? We've had a lot of theories about the ever after. We theorized they were in a fairy tale book. We theorized it was the afterlife. Like, a lot of things
It was
have happened.
It was 2021. It was a different time.
Yeah,
we
like,
thought
we
we'd
had
get
no
another.
information.
We thought we'd get another RWBY season within a year. We thought COVID would be over
We
by
thought
now.
a lot of
We
things.
thought a lot of things.
But I think that we got it this time. Just to give you guys some backstory, the reason why we had the afterlife theory is because we kind of wanted like an Orpheus Eurydice thing going on where they were sent into the afterlife and they had to like come back, right? They had to do like the journey and then be able to go back to Remnant without being tempted to stay. Like that was going to be sort of the vibes, right? And we may see characters from the afterlife such as Pyrrha. We had thought, right? And that was going to be the whole challenge. Almost like a reverse Orpheus and Eurydice, I guess. Like, instead of taking out, like, Pyrrha from the afterlife, it's that John can't be tempted to stay. Like, that was our idea way back in the past. I don't think that that's necessarily going to happen anymore, but I was thinking about it today. And I was thinking, like, how can we get the essence of that sort of story where the hero goes into the underworld and they need to make their escape and they need to not be tempted to stay in, like, kind of the false paradise thing. Like, the vibes.
Way down
you
in
know?
Hades Town.
Exactly.
Way
We
down
just
under the ground.
We wanted to distill the vibes. So I was like, okay, well, clearly it's not the afterlife anymore, but how can we get the vibes? So we decided to go take a look at the Lost Fable. And this is what we found. The God of Light says something very interesting to Salem as he's giving his big speech on why he's punishing her. And he basically says something to the effect of, we hope you learn your lesson.
Your
we
lesson
sure
to
will.
value, like, life and death. We learned our lesson.
Well, not even that. It's also like the lesson of fucking with humanity, right? Because the
Fucking
life
with
and
us.
death thing was first. But
Yeah.
then after she got cursed with that, she rallied humanity up to rise up against them. And so that was the other
Accepting
lesson,
the consequences of your actions, perhaps.
This world was an experiment. We
A
hope that
failed
you
one.
learn from it because we certainly will. And that got me thinking, right? Like, what does that mean you'll learn from it? Like, it kind of sounds like we'll learn from it for the next time. And so that also got me thinking, what went wrong the first time, really? Like, other than Salem, like, what went wrong?
Free will, mostly. And
Exactly.
this is my assumption that, like, they wouldn't follow their lessons. They wouldn't do what they're told.
Yeah.
So presumably.
Too much free will.
Yeah, too much free
You
will.
know, like, it was the humans disobeying them and, like, kind of rising against their masters. That's the word that Jin uses. That's what backfired, really. Was
So-
a little too much free will and arrogance.
So presumably, when they go off and they make their next world, which is the ever after, they do two things which I find very interesting. One, they don't have any humans.
Yeah,
They
or
have-
at least
They have
Not really.
humanoid, but like the little prince was not
A doll.
as a doll, not really a human.
Yeah.
And there's other humanoid, but they're dolls, they're toys, they're not.
we haven't
humans.
seen a person.
Not really seen like a proper person. Like Team RWBY are people, like Neo is a person, like Jean
Jean.
is a person. You know people. And then the second thing is that yes, the denizens of Ever After have free will, but well, you've noticed this whole time where they seem to focus on what they do, not
Yeah.
who they are, not their own
They are
separate
literally
identity.
defined by what they do
do.
there.
And if you
Yeah.
don't do the thing that you're meant to do, you stop being the person you are.
Yeah.
Like the herbalist stopped kind of being the herbalist, and the cat
Yeah.
mentioned that. The cat also mentioned, Curious Cat, they also mentioned that the little prince used to be a king.
Yeah, or
And so-
something like that. Like,
so
we
when-
get that
yeah.
line, that the implication by the herbalist is that this is how a king becomes a prince. That he regressed
Or was
backwards.
it the herbalist?
It
or
was the
it Curious
herbalist who
Cat?
said that.
Okay.
He was
Never mind.
grumpy. He was talking about Team RWBY. Like,
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
why you kids become princes instead of, and regress backwards instead of being kings, right?
So when
and
the,
so
so
that's
when the king
interesting.
stopped acting kingly like a king, and he started acting like a petulant child, presumably after he had a run-in with Alex,
Yeah,
he regressed.
exactly. He was almost cursed, you could say.
And
right?
there was also...
built-in curse for not following
Mhm.
your,
We-
destiny or
We
whatever.
haven't seen this yet, but Weiss mentions a carpenter.
Yes, the
And
carpenter.
The carpenter, the friendly carpenter or
Yeah.
something. And we don't see a carpenter, but we do see a blacksmith.
yeah.
Or someone who practices metallurgy. And it's like, maybe that's what happened. Maybe they weren't like happy enough. They got angry, and so what they did changed.
Yeah,
So
something
it's like,
like that.
so you're a bit like, who you are changes depending on what you do, which isn't the same thing as losing your free will, but it does impact your ability to really go off and do
whatever you
what
want.
Salem
There's
did,
a consequence.
There's a consequence
to it where you won't be the same person anymore. And I think that that's really the interesting thing. And so I was thinking, like, in the ever after, if you go against your purpose, you either change or you cease. I don't know. We don't really know what happened with the herbalist. Some people think that he's just taking a break to, like, recalibrate himself. Some people think he's dead. But I was also thinking about ever after in terms of, like, the name. Like,
happily ever after.
Like, exactly. Like, it's the happily ever after. So this is what the gods see, you know.
As their happily
like,
ever after.
This is the Disney movie, while Remnant is the Brothers Grimm. You know what I'm saying? Like, no,
exactly.
I'm serious.
No, you're right.
Exactly. So this
we
is where
scrubbed out all the
everything
scary
works
stuff.
out. They got rid of all the...
No one's going to turn to sea foam in this one.
I don't want to say they scrubbed out the darkness, right? Because there is an area where Neo is that has suspiciously God of light and darkness energy. Like, there's this bridge between realms.
I have a suspicion that the gods, in the same way that you see in that Volume 6 episode, The Lost Fable, how on Remnant, or previous, whatever they called the world previous to Remnant, there was a physical location where both the brothers Light and the brother Darkness lived.
Yeah.
And part of me is wondering if the same thing's happening here. Like, does the brother Light live in that...
the tree.
In the tree, does the brother Darkness live in that, like, dark, inky place where Neo landed?
It's a combination.
Does the Jabberwocky follow the brother of Darkness? Because we had the theory that it kind of sounded like the Jabberwocker was taking orders.
Yeah. I have a theory about that. I think that the tree is actually the unification point. I think that they're actually both in the tree, even though it may not look that way. Like, yes, like, that area does look very, like, Brothers of Darkness area, but I also wonder, like, Yang says that each little section of the world is like a puzzle piece, right? And that Remnant isn't really like that. Like, it's all mixed up puzzle pieces where everything is very neatly divided in the acres, right? So I'm sure
Remnant is a lot more or chaotic.
Yeah.
And like it's almost like the Ever After is like a suburb with like a really aggressive like homeowners association. Oh
my god.
Like, you cannot like paint your
roses
door
red, okay?
the wrong color. You cannot do anything. You put the garbage out in the morning and not at night before.
But to that point, I think that the brothers may actually be united now at the tree, but they still have their own areas that they kind of like a little more, just because, you know, you need separate rooms sometimes, right? Even though if when you hang out together, you still need separate areas. So I don't think it's going to be that divided, as in, like, the half that Team RWBY's in is the light half, and the half that the brother is in the dark half. I don't think it's necessarily going to be like that. And I think that if it is like that, like, to some capacity, I think that it's more natural progression than we may think, because the area that they're in right now is actually very dark. Like, it's giving the darkness vibe, right? And, like, the sun is still out as far as we know. It's just that as they cross into that area, it gets dark. So it's very interesting when you think about it that way. But I think that they're in more combination now compared to when they were before. I think that they're actually working together now. But another thing that's interesting, though, about, like, I guess this idea that the gods of light and darkness are the ones that are doing it, is that they can't reach the tree by wanting to go there. And I wonder if that's something they learned after Salem, is that the gods could not be as easily accessible, or else people would go there for their own selfish reasons. You can only get to the tree if you have an unselfish reason. Like, you can't go to the tree by wanting to go to the tree. And so I feel like that could be sort of something, like, there's something to say about that maybe that's a safety measure in terms of, like, directly confronting the gods, is that the tree needs to come to you, basically, right? It's that you can't just want to go to the tree.
Yeah, when you really think about it, that even, like, lends to the whole notion of it's very controlling, because you can't do anything in the Ever After that the Ever After doesn't want you to do.
Exactly.
You can't go where you want to go. The Ever After controls it. So in a way, maybe I take that earlier statement back. You really don't have free will in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and so I wonder, the other thing is that we see that the people of Wonderland have magic. And that was something that the God of Darkness explicitly said was his gift to humanity. Like, my own gifts used against me, right? And so I wonder if what the prince does, is that magic? Everybody here has magic? I mean, the cat has magic.
The cat has
we
magic,
know that.
yes.
And so I wonder
Little has the magic of stealing our hearts.
I wonder if that's a reference, or that's pointing to before, like foreshadowing towards the fact that it is actually made by the god of light and darkness, because Jinxie has magic too, like magic of illusions, and it's a lot more similar to the magic that used to be on Remnant compared to like semblances and stuff in the show. Like we do only see the cat do like
the way
one
he's
thing,
able
but
to like move the plant life, that
yeah, like that is
kind of magic too.
And like we don't know if everyone can only do one thing, but I'm assuming that the king doesn't just shrink people. I'm assuming he can do other stuff. Maybe that's too much of a presumption, but yeah, I think that the magic thing could also be pointing to that as well. And like I don't think that it's necessarily a perfect world. I think that there's still conflict, but it's conflict made within the balance. Does that make sense? It's like the conflict does need to exist. There always needs to be darkness, but it's darkness that is going as the Brother Light and Brother Dark have planned, if that makes sense. It's not like there's no evil, because Jinxie cons people. Like, there's still obviously evil. It's just the gods of light and darkness have agreed upon something. And there, we also see remnants of conflict. Like, it kind of looks like the area around the king's castle seems a little sus. Some people think it's like remnants of a battle once happened there, that there was once like a white side, like literally, like what do you call it, the White Queen or whatever, like from Alice in Wonderland. Like, some people think that like the White Queen used to exist and was wiped out or something. So I'm not saying it's a perfect world, but the gods are writing the story, right? Like, they control the conflicts that happen. Like, the god of darkness likes to play all the villains, right? There are kids playing with toys. The god of darkness still likes to play with the villains, and the god of light allows it because the villains always lose. Like, that sort of vibe. All of that being said, the question becomes, how does Alex and her friend come into this? And this is where I pulled the Orpheus and Eurydice thing back, sort of, okay?
Sure.
Here's my crack about how this makes sense now. Like, it all makes sense. First of all, Team RWBY asked to make the pathways, like the area, a place like the vaults. Wherever they are, it's not on Remnant, so Ambrosius was like, okay, I'll pick somewhere that's like this.
That's an adjacent universe.
That's an adjacent place that's not Remnant, but is similar to Remnant, right? And so, like, we don't know if Ozpin made the vaults or if the gods did, but if we get confirmation that the gods made the vaults, that could be the trickery fuckity-wuckity. Oh, you want a place like this? That means a place that the gods made. Well, where else did the gods make? They made this place. Like, you can see the line of thought in terms of Ambrosius, right? In terms of how Ambrosius would justify that. But the question becomes, how did Alex and the boy fall in here? And I know this is gonna sound a little crazy, okay? Because I know I've gotten other explanations, and I said I didn't like the idea that they just fucking, like, one day she literally was minding her business and fell through Remnant. I didn't like that. But here's my crack, okay? Imagine this. The gods, they've been here for a long time. And they know that Remnant is still out there. And they know that Salem's still doing her shit. And so the gods think to themselves, and they're like, you know, it's been a while. I wonder if humans can still be redeemed. Maybe after we unite the world, we should bring, like, you know, if they do manage to defeat Salem, maybe we should bring the humans here so they can live in our new paradise. And we will bestow our gifts onto them once more, okay? So the gods of light and darkness are basically thinking about the future. Like, I don't think that they're gonna defeat Salem, but if they could defeat Salem, we should probably plan something, because we said that we would walk among them again, but we don't really want to leave this place. So what if in the future, instead of like everybody living on Remnant, we just take all the humans and put them here, right? And so the gods basically promised, if they were summoned, they would live amongst humanity once more. That's what they promised. But now they're kind of attached to their new toy. Like, they don't want to leave. They would like to stay here, actually. And so they think of an idea. Well, okay, what if humans could live here? Like, you know, what if they could live here? Just an idea. And they don't know how to test that theory because they don't have any humans and they're not too keen on making any. You know what I mean? And, like, even if they made some now, they probably wouldn't be like the Remnant humans. They need to make sure and run a test, basically, that says Remnant human can live here and obey, right? They just want the Remnant humans to obey. So what do? They like, they
kidnap
they
Alex?
go back to Remnant and they kidnap Alex. Okay, I know this sounds crazy, just
and her
stay
partner,
with me. They kidnap Alex, and her companion is like, what the fuck, you can't take my friend, and so he also jumps through the hole. Like, imagine Alex is just minding her own goddamn business, okay, and like a portal opens up, and she's like, oh, what's this? Because she's kind of, I don't want to say she's dumb, but she's curious, right? Like, Alex was. And so she's just like, oh, what's going on here? And
I really hope they make Alex a himbo.
And so she goes
that'd be amusing.
through the portal, and her friend is like, what is she doing? And her friend goes after her, and they both get stuck, okay? So the reason why Alex and the friend are there is because they are the test subjects. They are the test by the gods. The gods wanted to test out if remnant humans could live in their new world. And so they just basically took a couple, to run their little experiment.
That's a unique, because like our previous theories were that she was a maiden and Ozpin hit her in there.
Yeah.
Or that it was just spontaneously.
Or this was the relic realm, right? Like that just grew sort of magic. But
alternatively, I could also see a universe where the brother, like just the brother of darkness, does it just to play a prank on her, his brother.
Well, what if we brought a human in so they don't agree on it?
Yeah, and the brother was like, no, that's a terrible idea. He's like, too bad I'm doing it. And then
I like that too. So Alex gets there with her friend, and they're just like, well, what the fuck, right? And so they're like really distressed at this idea that they have been completely taken off of Remnant and everything, right? And so I think what would be interesting is we hear the story, like this is a story of a girl who had a lot of problems. And then the story continues, and they're like, but she learned her lesson at the end, right? And then the Cheshire Cat says, you can say that with absolutely no indication of a genuine, you know what I mean? And so what if Alex learned her lesson, by becoming, we think that she's the rabbit, right? Like she actually succumbed, I guess, to the gods. She eventually decided to change. Like she became one of their playthings, and then they realized oh, it worked. This is great. You know what I mean? Like they successfully changed her. Because they mentioned in the story that Alex is sort of like an asshole, right? Team RWBY says that. Yeah. And so what if it's like, oh, but we can change her. And so eventually, even though Alex lied and cheated and whatever they say that she did, she eventually got to a point where she gave up the identity of being Alex and became the White Rabbit. And the gods were like, it worked. Congratulations!
Oh.
And they were happy with that. They were happy with the idea that they could bring the humans from Remnant here, and they could eventually beat them down far enough to take their free will and turn them into whatever, whatever their purpose was. And they were like, success! Right? And so in the story, it seems like Alex went back to Remnant and she wasn't the same person as she was before. But what if that's not even true? What if she never made it back to Remnant? What if that's just propaganda? You know what I mean?
What if
the gods wrote the end of the story.
What if the other one got back? One of the companions?
Well, see, I'm not sure about that part. I like the idea that they're both still there because I do like the idea of the boy being the cat or the bird or whatever. But I kind of
love it when boys or birds or
cats. Like the idea that the gods did this and they put the story on Remnant as sort of a foreshadowing to what would one day happen. You would want to go to Wonderland. It's the favorite story. Blake says that it's the childhood favorite story of all the children on Remnant. So what if it's a propaganda tool or something by the gods to make this place sound fun? So eventually, when all of them go there, they'll all want to submit. You know what I mean? And so the only reason why they said that Alex came back to Remnant and she was a better person is because they didn't want it to end in a way that freaked the Remnants, the Remnant people out. They wanted to just make it sound like it had a happy ending. She returned to Remnant and she changed, but she didn't actually return to Remnant. She just changed in the way the gods wanted to. And so the way that brings in the boy, I guess, is that if he was more, if she was more resistant and he wasn't, or even the other way around. And so that'll be very interesting for the rest of the volume. And especially with Team RWBY and stuff, they all seem to be resolved in their identities. Meanwhile, RWBY was not. And RWBY could be, I guess, another example of someone who succumbed, the remnant human that almost succumbs. John has probably succumbed, question mark. We don't know what's going on with John yet, but John has probably fallen into the trap too. So I think that the way the volume's gonna end is that they're eventually gonna get to a place, maybe they finally get to the tree, and they see that the gods are there. And maybe they don't look the same, maybe they look a little bit different, but the gods are finally there, and they're like, what the fuck, you were behind that? Mr. Jackson! You know what I mean?
Old man Jenkins!
Yeah, that's what I meant. Old man Jenkins! And they're like, oh, right? And so the gods, I think, eventually start to realize that, Team RWBY proved them wrong. They thought that they had gotten it right when they brought Alex and the friend down here and Alex and the friend succumbs. But the whole point of the journey in Volume 9 is that Team RWBY cannot be changed. that the remnant humans do actually have the will to fight and the will to persevere, and they are willing to go back to their own horrible, fucked up world instead of live here. Even though they may go there and die by Salem, they have the resolve to overcome the challenge by the gods. So where Alex and her friend failed, Team RWBY actually succeeds, and they go to the gods and they say, we completed your challenge, send us fucking home. And the gods are like, are you sure you really want to go back there when Salem is certainly going to destroy the world? And they say, yeah, we do, because that's better than living here. Choosing our own purpose and our own lives is
heroes.
Better, right? That's better. We're better off
Maybe
that
that's
way.
when RWBY could do like, I am a hunter.
Exactly. That's when
Like
RWBY
what she
can do her
failed to do
hero
with Herb.
speech.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's great.
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of assumed this was gonna be a little crack.
I think
That's pretty good.
I think it's pretty good. I mean,
That's like
know.
believable. I
can't-
kind of like that.
Exactly, and I think that that's very interesting. And that can also mean that now Team RWBY also has a reason why, like, they want to unite humanity and defeat Salem, but they don't want the gods to come back. Like, that's something that people have speculated for a long time, is that they'll defeat Salem and they'll call back the gods, and the gods will be like, we're ready to live among you, and they say,
They're like, no, fuck off.
fuck you, right? And so at least now, maybe that's how this ties in back to the actual, like, plot of everything, right?
Yeah.
Is that they go back to Remnant and they're like, okay, like,
The
yes,
gods have abandoned
we gotta
us.
defeat Salem, but we also can't bring the gods back because the gods want to make us into Cheshire Cat. Like, you know what I mean? The gods want to take away all of our free will.
I just like the idea that they go back and they meet Ozpin again, and they're like, okay, so hear me out. Maybe the gods are assholes. And we should dissociate with them anymore.
Exactly. And I think
like
that's
idea.
fascinating. I think that's interesting because now there's sort of two, like, new things going on. Like, they have to defeat Salem, but they now know that if they unite humanity and, like, bring back the gods to judge Remnant, the punishment for that, like, even if they succeed in uniting humanity, the gods are gonna be like, congratulations!
You can
Time
all be
to go
mice
here,
now.
Where you can all,
Yeah.
exactly, where you can all be mice. And so I think that this actually makes a lot of sense. I think it does. And it's a very nice parallel, as we mentioned in another video this week, to Alex and Salem. Like, Salem never learned her lesson and had to continue walking the
And
face
Alex
of the
never
earth.
learned her
And we
lesson
had this
either.
idea that Alex never learned the lesson either. Or Alex did, right? I guess in this version you would say Alex did learn the lesson, but learning the lesson meant giving up her identity and succumbing to the gods. Which brings up an interesting sort of thing. Like, do you allow people to be bad? Or, you know what I mean? Because that's their choice. Like, do you allow Alex to be a bit of an asshole if that's her choice to be an asshole? Like, yeah, oh, you guys want her to learn her lesson so bad, but making her learn her lesson against her will is also taking away her fundamentals of her identity. I'm not talking about Salem, I'm talking about Alex. Like, if Alex literally turned into the rabbit, Team RWBY has been saying this whole time that they hope that Alex learned her lesson, but then they find out that to the gods, learning your lesson means taking away any individuality you have, right? And so I think that brings up a very interesting, because, I don't know.
Individuality is a big thing in RWBY,
Yeah.
with the colors and the names.
And obviously Salem is bad, so I'm not saying that to redeem Salem in any capacity, but it's very...
Salem's always had a bit of a point, you know?
But Salem has a point in the sense that grief is a fundamental aspect of humanity. And so if you forced Salem to learn her lesson, you would be taking away, actually, I think, the human part of her. The human part of her that resents the gods for taking away the person that she loved, that is like the only human part of her that is left. And so if you forced Salem to learn to value life and death, but that's only in the context of the gods that don't really understand what grief means to a human, that is actually making Salem less human than she is now, which is interesting because the gods want Salem to learn her lesson. But is that a lesson that Salem actually needs to learn? Or is that a lesson that the gods are imposing based off of their own ideals and rules of what a human should be like?
That's interesting. I
don't know. I'm just
I
saying,
like it.
right? It's kind of interesting when you think of it that way because it's like, yeah, they gotta stop Salem from destroying the world, but in terms of learning the lesson the gods wanted, maybe they'll realize that what the gods wanted was bad. Like, actually not good. But yeah, anything else, Hunter, before we wrap it up?
Other than like of all the like crack theories you've like whipped up in the past little while, this feels the most believable.
I need to write something, man. Like, I have all these little ideas that I'm like, oh, I don't know.
After we finish recording, you're gonna, like, with a gun to my head, force me to read your fan fiction. You're quite good at it.
You know what I mean? I'm just like, I really should start writing stuff because, like, I don't know, maybe
okay, all right, don't get self-aggrandizing.
I know, I just say, maybe it's easier already in the context of RWBY and, like, you know, having that as the basis for the world, but I'm like, I'm cooking. Let me cook. Like, I need to do something with all this brain energy. And so, yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed. Thank you for attending Calxyn's Royal Court today, and we will see you guys in the next one. Bye!